Good afternoon. We are live today with Dr. Nathan Graber. He is a pediatrician with St. Peter's Pediatrics in Clifton Park. Today we are talking about teens and sleep. Good afternoon, Dr. Graber.
Good afternoon.
So let's start with the basics. How much sleep do teens really need per day?
So there's definitely a shift in the pattern that teens sleep as they get older. It's not like when they were little, when your child was a little kid and they had slept at a need for sleep of like 10 to 13 hours. It actually drops down to more like adult levels. A typical teen is going to need about 8 to 10 hours of sleep, and a lot of the more recent recommendations have narrowed that window down to make it a little bit more specific to about 8.5 to 9.5 hours a night of sleep. One of the things that we see in our own teens, like being the parent of a couple of teens myself, is you see that shift in the sleep pattern. And what's happening is that kids are starting to go to bed later and want to sleep later into the morning.
And, I'm sure this can impact quality sleep. Are there some other factors that can impact quality sleep?
So in particular for teens, there's a few things happening, quite a few things happening. Some are within their control and some are not. One of the things that's not within their control is that teens have a natural shift in their circadian rhythm. So they don't really have the impulse or pressure to go to sleep or feel like they need to go to sleep until later. And as a result, they still need to get that 8.5 to 9 hours of sleep, so they'll sleep a little bit later into the morning. And that's a natural shift into the circadian rhythm. But this gets compounded by some of the behaviors that go along with being a teenager. One of those behaviors is spending more time on screens and social media, and spending time talking to their friends or playing games until later into the night. And it's sort of an impulse to want to stay up a little bit later for a number of reasons, including those. One of the other things that happens is that teens can get very, very busy. So they get home from school, they have a lot of homework, they have extracurricular activities, they're involved in sports, they work a job after school. That can impact as well. And then they take on things like caffeine, like thinking that they're going to help them stay awake during the day, so they'll drink caffeine in the morning or during the day to increase how they feel, to make them more awake. And actually caffeine usage in that way can also impact on the quality of sleep, and it reduces the quality of sleep as well. Other things that impact on the quality of sleep include things like the environment in which the kids sleep in. So is it a quiet, calm environment, or is it bright and noisy at night? And that can impact as well.
And what kind of an impact can chronic sleep loss have on a teen or adolescent?
So I think that the current term is sleep debt. We can think of it as sleep deprivation. We all know how we feel when we don't get enough sleep the night before, and it makes you feel kind of tired during the day, a little bit drowsy, and you have this kind of fatigue. And that's, seems pretty benign. We can all kind of work through that. A teen who's like kind of committed and dedicated to getting there through their day doesn't really have an issue with it. We'll just keep trying to work through it. But what is also happening is that can impact on academic performance. They're not going to be doing as well. It reduces executive functions, which is the ability to actually get things done. May not be able to accomplish getting their homework or their schoolwork done during the day. There's an increased risk for being late to school and school absenteeism as a result of being tired. And then some of the other effects that maybe you may notice in your teens is things like mood dysregulation. So they can have angry outbursts or outbursts of moods, or just be kind of almost depressed, or it could also increase the risk for real depression and for suicidal ideation. And then decrease in focus. So if you have a child that already has underlying ADHD, we know that sleep debt or sleep deprivation can impact tremendously on the on their outcomes in their ability to focus or reduce their impulsivity. So we know that those are some of those, but there are some that are quite surprising. For instance, kids who are chronically sleep deprived have an increased risk for obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular morbidity later in life. And then one of the things that we're really, really concerned about, and it's actually the number one killer of teens, is car accidents. So teen drivers who are sleep deprived have an increased risk of crashes.
Now, a lot of, not a lot, but some local school districts are currently considering delaying the start of the school day, particularly for high school students. What kind of an impact could this have?
So, like we talked about at the very beginning, so there are modifiable risk factors and non-modifiable risk factors for sleep deprivation in teens. This is one of those modifiable risk factors. We know based on the evidence that delaying start times by an hour, like not having high school start until 8:30 or sometimes later, depending on other factors like how long kids have to commute, actually has very positive impacts on all of these health outcomes that we discussed. Now, kids, even if we say, oh, you need to set a bedtime for earlier so that you can get in that 8.5 9 hours of sleep, a teen is not necessarily going to be able to fall asleep right away because of that shift in the circadian rhythm, and they're going to need to sleep later into the morning. And school districts where they've done this, they've noticed improvements in academic performance, improvements in their ability to regulate their own mood during the day, and one of the greatest outcomes that they've seen is a reduction in teen automobile crashes, and that's really a big plus. I mean, there are a number of things we can do as parents, and we try our best when it comes to our teens. We can't totally control them, but there are some other things that we should be doing, and that includes things like limiting screen time so that they get totally cut off for an hour before their bedtime. Having a parent and set bedtime, saying to your teen, listen, 10 o'clock's your bedtime, so at 9 o'clock all the screens are off. Finish all your work, get your schoolwork done, and then go to sleep. Another thing is, and it's something that we tend to, all as parents, kind of feel bad about our kids. So on a Saturday or Sunday morning, we let them sleep as late as they want, sometimes like noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's not good for them because it doesn't help them to reset their circadian rhythm. And we need to try to keep their wake time about the same every day of the week. And so if my kid has to be on the school bus at 6:30 in the morning to get to school on time, or that's when the bus picks them up, then what am I going to do? Tell them that they still have to wake up at 6:30 on the weekends because they normally get up at 5:30 during the week for school? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It would be a lot better just to have the kids not get picked up before 7:30 so that they get that extra sleep. So on the weekends they can sleep till 8:30, and so that would be a really big benefit. Schools that are considering delayed start times are actually doing the right things by kids, and it's a recommendation that's supported by the American Academy of Pediatrics because we do know that it improves health outcomes for teens, it improves their academic performance, their behavior, their mental health, and their physical well-being.
Great. Some important advice. We appreciate your time, Dr. Graber.